This industry suffers from the scars of the industry. When you come into this industry, you'll see a lot of grumpy older people. Those are people that have been burned. They have scars. They act a certain way and they have a certain perception on what's right and wrong. And it's really easy to pick up bad habits and bad perspectives from other people, especially when you know nothing, because it's like your parents when you're growing up, you assume that they're God, right? Like they know everything. And it's the same thing when you come into this industry.
Hi, I'm Andrew Brown. You're listening to the Lost Art of the Skilled Trades podcast, a show that shines the spotlight on careers in the skilled trades that are high-paying, honorable, rewarding, and fulfilling. The trades are the backbone of the economy that keep us running, and without them, our world would cease to exist. Today, we have a special guest, Ryan Eisenhauer, aka Ike of Construction Mentor. Welcome, Ryan, to the show.
Andrew, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on the show, man. Back when I started my business, Tool Fetch, an industrial supply company, this was really after years ago where I found myself on ground zero, 9/11, helping tradespeople find survivors. And what really hit me when I was down there was watching the tradespeople and how they showed up that day. I saw electricians, I saw ironworkers, I saw welders, literally to some degree saving lives. Those incredible professionals really don't get the recognition they deserve. That sparked everything for me, for everything I've done sort of after that situation. Building a business that serves the trades, launching a foundation that serves the trades, speaking across the country, and eventually starting this podcast to change the narrative around these careers. And when I came across your page, Construction Mentor, it reminded me of why I do all this. And you're out there giving young professionals advice about getting into the construction trade. Really, why do you think we've lost that respect for the trades, and how do we get it back?
You touched on two things right there that are very important. Tradespeople are a different breed, right? It's one of the things that drew me to the industry. It's funny because you mentioned saving lives. And if there's one trade that saves more lives than any other profession, including doctors, it's actually plumbers, right? And people don't realize that, but you wouldn't have a hospital, you wouldn't have pharmaceutical manufacturing, you wouldn't have food manufacturing, you wouldn't have any of it without a plumber. Clean water is the difference between a third world country and a first world country. That's why thousands of kids in third world countries in Africa actually die every day. It's because of contaminated water. That should get a little more respect than it does. And when you mentioned the thing about the trades responding to 9/11, I was just at lunch the other day. My father's retired. He was a pipefitter in Boston for 40 years. And we got lunch with somebody that he worked with for 30 years. And my dad went up and went to the bathroom. He's like, man, you know what I loved about your dad was that I loved going to work just to hang out with him every day. And to this day, I don't know anybody else that I could call in the middle of the night that would be there. There's just a different camaraderie and a different respect amongst the tradespeople. And if you grew up in the industry like I did, I think it's not only is the opportunity apparent, but that camaraderie and that teamwork, whatever you want to call it. I think we all want people there that we feel like will be there for us in our moment of need. And the trades have no shortage of that. It's definitely what made me fall in love with the industry. And where I think we kind of lost respect for them was this desire or notion to do less. I think over time, for whatever reason, we've prioritized indulgence with a maximum input to get a maximum output, right? Like we want to do the least amount of work to get the maximum amount of indulgence out of it. I don't know where that started or where the message started, but the notion that working in a trade is like a life sentence to like backbreaking work and that it's like less than is so far from the truth that we need to get back to it. And I think a lot of people have done a good job. Like obviously Mike Rowe does a really good job at telling people, what the opportunity in the trades are. Where I think he's missing the mark is, number one, he's old enough to be a lot of people's grandfather that are very young. And number two, it comes across as like you're patting somebody on the head and saying, oh, you're too stupid for college or to work with your brain and make a lot of money. Like go to the trades. He's obviously done a great job, but working in a trade, number one, allows you to make so much money faster than anybody else, but it doesn't just stop there. There is career growth in the trades as well. Everybody that I talk to, I have thousands of people in my DMs and comments telling me about how it affects their body and how they're going to break their back for 40 years and they're not going to have a body left and anything like that. And that basically, the man is kind of squeezing them for all they're worth and all their blood, sweat, and tears. And it couldn't be further from the truth, because when you're in the trades, you can become a project manager. You can become an executive. You can run your own company. And even if you don't want to run a company of 100 people making $100 million, you can make a couple $100,000 running a company of your own of 3 people. And nobody's connecting those dots for people. We've lost this message of trying to tell people that it's noble to work in the trades instead of concentrating on the career growth and the multitude of opportunities in any direction that you want to go, right? There's no dead end path in the trades. And I think that's the message that we still haven't gotten to.
There are a lot of misconceptions out there about the trades, but I want to go back to what you said about plumbers saves more lives than doctors. And it's true. And I've said this on a handful of posts on social media. And I remember there's this picture of a plumber, and he's on like a pedestal, and there's like a whole like audience like looking up at this plumber. And I feel like anyone in trades, but I'm just thinking about plumbers, that they don't get the recognition they deserve. And people look at me sideways and they say, doctor, plumber, what are you even talking about? Those people save lives, but you don't realize that in third world countries, like you said, about water and filtration and everything. I go to my tap and I can drink the water, but you can't do that in a third world country. And those are the people behind the scenes, the plumbers, and the people who are doing the hard work to keep our water supply clean. And I completely agree to that. I still don't feel that they are compensated to where they should be. And one of these things that come up on social media, as you see, is that some of these kids that are saying, hey, you know what? I'm looking maybe at a trade, but I'm also looking at going into working for McDonald's or Chipotle. And when I become an apprentice, I only make $18 or $20 an hour, but I can make $20 an hour in McDonald's. I'm like, okay, maybe at first, but you start to scale up as an apprentice over your 4 years. And it's funny, there's this back and forth of these old adages, of these misconceptions that, yes, you're not going to make a lot of money, you're going to break your back, and you're going to be yelled at all day. Why would I even want that? And I say to them, well, are you going to work your way up in McDonald's and Chipotle? Probably not, because you're going to surpass that if you go into the trades. So there's a lot of misconceptions that are going on there. And it's interesting you brought up Mike Rowe, because we had a chance, my foundation, the Skilled Trades Advisory Council, one of the individuals that I work with, Rob Alman, and he owns a facilities management company called Nest. We got to interview Mike Rowe for like an hour in front of 3,000 people. I got to meet him. Really funny guy.
He's awesome. I just listened to him and Joe Rogan a month ago. He's awesome.
He is awesome. He was there and he sang because he sang in like, I guess, opera or whatever he did. Certainly a good guy. Yeah, he's out there and everybody looks at him as like the guy on the pedestal, and he is, and I get it, he's getting older, but his message and what he did by showcasing that in his on his show, Dirty Jobs, really kind of put the mark out there that you can do well in a blue collar skilled trade. So the opportunities, I think, are endless.
Yeah, and I think, with Mike, when I said that there's like holes in the messaging, he's a great voice, a needed voice. You and I try to be voices, but we're not Mike Rowe, right? We're on a much smaller scale. He's really the only voice that big and loud. We need more at that level, different perspectives, people that have been in a job trailer, people that know what it's like to work in a deadline or in an unsafe situation, or people that have seen some stuff, and people that have truly tried to climb the ladder or learn a trade and then climb the ladder in the industry. And what's funny about what you said, comparing the Chipotle to McDonald's is like, yeah, okay, where are you going to take that skill? Can you walk across the street and tell somebody like, yeah, man, I know how to roll a burrito. I know how to take a scoop of guac and charge you $2 extra. No, but if you know how to be an electrician, how to do carpentry, even how to paint. If you look, there's more painters than any other type of contractor in the country, and there's a reason why, right? Because it's a little easier to learn. It's on the lower spectrum of the skilled trades. When you talk about getting an education, college is what comes to people's mind. You're paying to go to college. You're also paying with your opportunity cost because you're not making any money while you're there. Maybe you're working at a restaurant or something on the side, but there is an opportunity cost to not working towards getting experience towards your career. That is not how it works in the trades. You get paid on day one. In the union, that's a great opportunity because those minimum wages are public. You know what they are, and you have a guaranteed raise at every single point, every year for 4 years or 5 years, and then you get out and you make a great wage. When you talk about even a non-union job, I have people on my podcast all the time. They're starting people at $25, $30 an hour. they'll pay them more as soon as they understand enough to go be productive on their own and run their own job and do their own installs and things like that. So the notion that the pay is low, the perspective is wrong, right? You're analyzing the situation wrong. You're getting paid to get an education. And at the end of that education, I don't know a single person in the skilled trades that is average that makes less than $100,000 a year in any market. The average American only makes $60,000 a year. The average American of any age, people 45, 50 years old, people that have been doing something for 20 years. At the end of that education that you just got paid for, you're going to be making almost double what they made. Tell me what the better investment is. And that's just being a journeyman or a journeywoman in a trade. Never mind, again, climbing the ladder, becoming an executive, a project manager, owning your own business and getting charged for your time. And then what a lot of people find when they get in the trades that nobody talks about. So not only do we not talk about the career growth into entrepreneurship or executive seats, but a lot of people do that. What do they find out? I don't want to do that. I want to be back in the trade because I like the peace of mind of working with my hands, having marching orders, having a drawing to go building to it, doing my job well, getting paid very well to do it. And then I get to hang my hat when I go home and I get to live my life and leave the job on the job site.
I went to college for 4 years and came out more confused out of school than when I was in school and jumped about 3 or 4 different majors, right? And then I went into IT and then I went into industrial tools and equipment because of 9/11. Like my journey in higher education didn't do me any good at the end of the day. And no one took me by the hand. No one told me anything. A lot of kids are just coming or going through college and just being told like, get a 4-year college degree. And I just think it's like a misconception. Like if you have that technical ability, if you have that mechanical ability, and especially you're in school, sometimes you're not led down that path of like, hey, you can be a plumber. You can be an electrician. Those conversations I don't think are happening when you're sitting down with a guidance counselor. And that guidance counselor, it's one guidance counselor to the entire grade. They don't really know that individual and don't know what their background is. Like they really could want to work with their hands, but they're being told like, go to college, because you walk into a guidance counselor's office and you see college, 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 college. And everyone asks what college, your teacher's asking you what college. And even parents are saying, you know, you should go to college and try to figure it out. But again, kids are coming out of school with good amount of debt. They're not getting the return on investment because they're not getting the job. And a lot of these jobs don't require the degree. On top of AI is disrupting so many white collar positions and jobs. All these generations are really starting to rethink things. Like the Wall Street Journal came out with a tagline and said that Gen Z is the next tool belt generation, right? I mean, it's basically coined and it's true. I believe that trade school was up about 16% in the last 2 years, which is a sign that kids are starting to take a look at other options. And that's one of my shticks is that, yeah, if you want to go to college, that's fine. You want to be a doctor, you want to be a lawyer, go for it. But if you want a different option, you want an opportunity, like you said, you make money right away. You start learning a skill that's never going to be obsolete. It's never going to be outsourced. AI is not going to take your job, right? There's always work to do. You can work your way up, climb that ladder of success. It's how far you want to take. You want to own your business? Great. You want to work for a construction company, work your way up? Great. If you just want to stay and working in the field? Great. But you got to maximize all the information, be a sponge, get around the right people, have a good mindset, and don't screw around and climb that ladder of success.
Well, listen, I got a guy that's in my neighborhood. He's an electrician, fully licensed. He can do whatever he wants. You know what he charges to walk into somebody's house to do an outlet or a light fixture or anything like that? He's one guy. He doesn't employ anybody but himself. And he's charging like $200 to $350 an hour for him to show up at your house to do something like that. Like, come on. He says he works a lot. I know what he actually works. He works less than 40 hours a week. And that's the other thing, right? This notion of working 40 hours a week to get by when you're in a trade, especially if you employ yourself and you're charging whatever you want for your time. And there's such a shortage out there. Again, plumbers, that same stat on the Gen Z, the tool belt generation, they say we're going to be 500,000 plumbers short by 2027. But what they don't tell you is that we only have 480,000 plumbers licensed in America to begin with. So not every plumber's licensed, right? But what does that mean in 2027? That means that we're screwed. That means that you're going to be able to charge more for your time. So when I see all these people in my DMs and comments saying, oh yeah, you can make good money, but say goodbye to your family. Absolutely not. That couldn't be further from the truth. So not only is this a good opportunity to make money, but if you play your cards right and you do it the right way, you might be able to make that 100 grand without even working 40 hours. So that's the other thing that people aren't talking about. And you mentioned, the notion of finding yourself in college, right? Like there's way cheaper ways to go find yourself. You want to find yourself. Why don't you go get a job and try to learn from some people with some life experience and leverage that and use that to create your perspective instead of burying yourself in debt. And you said something really funny about the education, like if you want to be a doctor or a lawyer, and usually the other one that people say is engineer, right? And I have a degree in engineering and I have an MBA. I can confidently say that in 20 years, I have never been asked about either of those degrees one time. I cannot recall one time when I have ever went back and looked at my notes or recalled anything from those courses or those textbooks. I have this idea that I've been working on called the education industrial complex, where we're paying more for those degrees for a bunch of crap that we don't need. The point of a degree is supposed to teach you the skills to take off in a particular career, to show up to an employer and say, yes, I have an engineering degree, therefore I can do X, Y, Z. Well, when you look at electives are required to hit your credit requirement to get your degree. By definition, that has nothing to do with your degree, right? That has nothing to do with the skills that your degree is telling employers that you're supposed to do. Well, those can cost thousands of dollars per credit, and you need like 20 of them to graduate. So there's a bunch of money there that you're sinking in. Half the time when you go to college, and usually it's people without those degrees that say this, because I've never actually heard somebody with one of those degrees say that. You're taking general education courses that you've already should have taken in high school, algebra, basic English, whatever. But you're paying to take that again this time. You're paying to find yourself in a place that you've already should have been educated on in high school. And then you get to something like mechanical engineering. I was sitting down at a dinner with 3 guys that work with me in my company, and construction mentor is what I do for fun, right? But during the day, I'm an executive at a top 10 general contractor in the US. We all have mechanical engineering degrees, right? And we were joking about the electives that we took. One of them took like African music history or something like that as an elective. And then I was like, wait a minute, let's talk about the actual mechanical engineering courses that we took. For you to become somebody that designs HVAC, plumbing, and fire protection in a building, or structural engineer or anything, you have to take particular courses that fit the engineering mold, but not necessarily the career in construction that you need to be an engineer. And when we look at it and we kind of like laid it all out, it was less than like 25% of the courses were actually relevant to what a mechanical engineer does in building construction. When you talk about like going to different colleges and spending a ton of money for that degree to either find yourself or to get a degree that you think is going to advance your career, a particular career, the question that nobody's asking is how much of that is actually relevant to your career and how much of that is going to make a difference in your salary. Take it out of construction. Why would you pay to go to Vanderbilt $90,000 a year to get a nursing degree when that nursing degree from a community college will get you the same starting salary? Nurses start out at about $60,000 a year nationally. Why would you spend $360,000 at a 6.5% interest rate to put yourself in $1 million in debt to make the same money that somebody got from a community college? When was the last time you went into a hospital and asked where the nurse went to school? Just totally doesn't happen.
It's not like it used to be where you needed that, right? You needed that degree. When I graduated in 2000 from college, it was very different. And I was told also from my parents, like, go to college. I just followed what they said. It would almost be if I said I don't want to go to college, they would look at me funny, just like a lot of other parents do. The people that went to college, just like you said, doesn't necessarily add up. There's a lot of people who come out of school who don't even go into the degree that they study for. Like, you're spending all this money and then you find yourself like, shit, I didn't want to do that. And it's like, you look back and now you have all this debt because you signed on that dotted line for that loan, and that's following you, and you're starting over on top of it. So I do think that you can go to community college. I do think that you can take courses online and you can learn different skills. You don't necessarily need to go to college like you once did.
Well, you know what's funny, Andrew? You just said something funny about like parents, especially if they went to college or they had a dream of their child going to college, right? My father, again, I said he's a union pipe fitter in Boston for 40 years. He retired at 58 years old. Today, retired 10 years later, between his pension and his annuity, he's taking home over $100,000 to do nothing. He is retired at like $120,000 a year to do nothing. And even he told me, I signed up to be an apprentice in the pipefitters union. He wanted me to go to college, and so I did it. Always plan on coming back to the trades, or that trade specifically, because I worked in the trades while I was in college on a roofing and framing crew. That's how distorted the message was. Look how good of a setup my father had. My father always made more money than anybody else in my family as a pipe fitter. and he's making more than them now in retirement. And he will till the day he dies. Even if he lives to 95 years old, he's going to be making a ton of money. And even he thought that like I should go to college just because. And a lot of that probably had to do with his own pride, right? It was to serve himself, to tell other people what I was doing and what boxes I was checking, what degrees I was getting, to like almost kind of brag about it, like it's a reflection on him. And that's the truth. And I think that's the truth for most parents, actually.
How much did your father, him being a pipe fitter, rub off on you, seeing him work in the union? And like you said, you got into the union, I think you said. How much did that rub off on you? And did he say to you, like, take this route, but also maybe have a backup, go to college just in case?
What's funny is like my father always taught me, one of his mantras was always have a trade to fall back on. So it was kind of the opposite, where like he wanted me to pick up a trade, but then try something else, try to elevate myself with whatever kind of idea or career that I wanted. But when the stuff hits the fan, if you always have a trade to fall back on, you can go wherever you want to go, right? And you can always put food on the table. I think when it came to the union, a lot of unions, especially since I've left the Northeast and now, I worked in New York and then Boston and then California, but now I've lived in Florida for a couple of years and now I'm doing projects nationally, right, for the global GC that I work for. I'm a little more in tune with other markets and how they view unions. Not everybody loves unions. They have some certain connotations, but the union mentality that I grew up in was show up first, 15 minutes as early as on time. When the clock starts, the job site is ready, the tools are out. At the end of the day, that's when you clean up. Bringing that quality and speed and efficiency is all part of it. That's why we're so proud of what we do. So that was always like a thing for me from the beginning. And I remember even like when I was in high school, one of the reasons I've got ahead of my career so early is because I was afforded an opportunity to work in a sheet metal shop in high school. And I was drafting sheet metal for high rises in Boston just very early, right? I remember I showed up at like 6:05. One time we drove separately and he was standing on the loading dock at 6:05 with guys behind him. He made me leave for the day and was like, you're not getting paid today. When you're ready to work, show up on time and have your boot tied, because my boot was untied. So like that kind of mentality, taking that into whatever I do and leading by example and being on time and putting in the extra hours and the extra effort and not kind of settling for a low quality, I think was probably the biggest effect on me. Work hard, play hard. I would say, if I had to sum up my father in 5 words.
He instilled that in you. And I like that story that you showed up at 6:05 and he told you to leave. These are straightforward things, like don't be on your cell phone, show up on time. If you need to stay, you need to stay. Don't complain. Something got lost. And I don't want to say it's generational, but something got lost. Like even when construction companies, when they're hiring people, some of these kids don't even show up for the job, or they get the job and they show up late the first day. What happened? Where's the miss here? Because it didn't seem to happen with the way that your father taught you and you took his advice. But what's happening out there?
Well, it's a two-way street. I think the boomers and the Gen Xers love to dump on them, but it's like, hello, who raised them? You know what I mean? Like kids are a blank canvas. I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. The world is the perception that I create for them. That's going to be reality, at least for the foreseeable future, when they get a little more worldly experience under their belt. But what I would say is where we're missing is that a lot of and I say guys, but guys and girls, the older ones see the young people come in and they expect them to know these things. They expect these ideas to be inherent to them. But has anybody ever told them, like, what if nobody ever told them that? What if nobody ever pulled them aside and said, hey, here's the perception that you just created for me. And this is one of the reasons that I started Construction Mentor, constructionmentor.org. And now I got a course out that goes through all of these things, how to create the right perception for yourself. Never mind a college education. The best education is experience. And the best way to get experience is to leverage somebody else's experience, somebody that's been doing it for 40 years. How do you pull as much as you can out of them only being in for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, so that your 4 years is better than their first 4 years even were. But nobody's going to want to mentor you if you're not giving off the right impression that you're worth their time. I, to this day, can't have my hands in my pockets, right, when I'm on a job site. Why? Because I was always told you better have something in your hand, and if you can't find anything to be in your hand, grab a broom, right? If you're walking from point A to point B, something needs to be picked up, thrown away. Ask somebody if they need something, whatever. Something always needs to be cleaned. The most important thing happening right now is what you're doing, not on your phone. Make sure you're groomed, right? Like make sure you're taking care of yourself, that you look presentable, that you don't have holes in your pants, and that, your fingernails are cut and that you're clean shaven. Like you give a crap, like somebody's proud to have you on their job site. showing up on time, 15 minutes early. All those types of things are things that when we don't see young people doing it, we should tell them and we should educate them on why and the perception that it creates. And then if they don't take that and actually put it to fruition, then we can start to make a judgment about them. It's going to be a question of motivation and why are they there? And do they understand the opportunity? And are they there to serve a purpose, or are they there to check a box because they just, they need a job and their parents hooked them up with a plumber that they know, or whatever that is. I was at a conference the other day and, I'm in construction management now. I don't work with my hands. It's just, I started out digging holes and scrubbing toilets on job sites and things like that 20 years ago. Now I'm a director at like I said, a large GC. I was at a conference with 70 people, 70 young people under the age of like 27 years old. And when I started, you got invited to a conference like that. You're there for two reasons. Number one, to learn. Number two, to meet the executives so that they can get FaceTime with you and you can build a rapport with them so that you feel comfortable with them and get on their radar, most importantly. Breakfast is on 7 at the schedule, right? Of the 70, maybe 10 showed up before 7:45. Most showed up, and this is a breakfast at a high-end hotel where it's free and they're getting, the opportunity to meet with big executives at a $10 billion a year company, right? Most showed up between 7:55 and 8:05, and the event officially started at 8. And it's like, okay, you guys clearly don't get this. Nobody's ever talked to you about this, but like, here's why you're here. And here's what you just told us without saying a word to us. It didn't resonate with everybody in the room, but it resonated with a lot. And those are the people that stood out. Out of the 70, I have 5 in my mind that I met and I saw things from them without even seeing how they are at their job, just how they interact, the level of care, where were they, what were they doing, how do they conduct themselves. Like, those are people that when they want my time, I'm going to give it to them.
It's interesting what you said about showing up early, because I say this to my kids, and I have young kids as well. Early is on time is late. I mean, it really is true. And these are just soft skills, staying off your phone, showing up on time. A lot of people don't have that. I mean, look, that could just be from upbringing and they just didn't have that. They don't even know that. But like you said, these kids showing up late, it already set sort of the tone of like who these people are, right? So if they are hired one day or brought on, is that going to happen in the workplace as well? When you bring these people in, you never know who you're going to get and if it's a culture fit, but they could be the best technician, the best plumber, the best welder, the best electrician. But on the other side, in the soft skills, they don't have that. That really kind of destroys everything, and they become sort of toxic in the workplace. And I see a lot of that.
One of the underlying issues here that is a little sensitive, maybe it's a little controversial to address, is, I grew up, everybody's dad was in construction, right? It wasn't just my dad. It was very much I knew the soft skills. Like, it was just very apparent to me how to conduct myself and how to manage up to somebody twice my age and how to work with them and the messaging. And without saying words, what type of message was I conveying to them? And where I think we struggle as an industry is people outside of that don't grow up in that middle class world where their parents are already in the industry, bringing them in and having them succeed. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about a lot of people from inner cities that aren't white, right? Like, people that don't look like me. And then when they come in, they don't do those things. People expect people to know how to do those things or how to conduct themselves. And then they get angry. And because they get angry, then they snap at them. And then because they're being snapped at, the new younger person or woman or minority, whatever it is, they feel like it's because they're different. And it's not. And I get it. Again, we got to do a better job at like, hey, here's why we conduct ourselves this way. There's a good reason for it. And here's what it's going to do for you if you also conduct yourself this way. It's a cultural thing. And it doesn't matter what you look like. If there's one thing that the construction industry is hungry for, it's competent people that care. I don't even care if you're smart. Just care and try to retain information. And that's it. Like, that's the requirement.
It's the basic stuff. It's the straightforward stuff that some people sort of take for granted and feel that those people should have that. A lot of kids don't. And sometimes you need to put the investment in. If you see something within that individual, right? If they have some sort of ability, you can sense that, you can feel that, is that you kind of nurture them along and you put them with a mentor of some sort and put them so they're set up for success. They're not going to show up day one. Like you said, they might have an issue showing up on time and they might have an issue with their phone, but it could be worked on. I wouldn't fully write those people off. They just maybe were never taught those type of soft skills.
Listen, like, if you're growing up with them projects and every adult you see is either a drug dealer or on welfare, and they're not getting up and going to work every day, and they're not getting up to go to work in your industry because guess what? If you're in construction, you're not in the projects. You know what I mean? Like, how do you expect them to know that? Like, that's where my advantage came from. If I ever had any kind of privilege, it was that I had a PhD in how to conduct myself in construction before I was 18. You know what I mean? And that's what I want to do as, the construction mentors. I want to pass those things on to people. I want to give you the answers to the test so that you don't have to learn those things the hard way and that you do get the right mentorship, because good mentors are far and few between. Like, first of all, you got to want to be one. I think in the industry, mentorship is this program where you stick young person with crusty old person and you expect them to extract knowledge through like osmosis. And it's just not how it works. You know what I mean? Like, you have to have a good candidate for both. So if you're young and you're trying to come into the trades, you want to be cognizant of that and you want to be on the lookout for that. I've never met one person that's 100% right all of the time. So you don't want to just emulate somebody, but if you can get 2 to 3 and you can try to pull the best pieces out of all of them to shape your perspective and put that in your toolbox, that's the best thing to do.
One of the hardest things actually to do is to ask for help. Some people don't want to ask for help. They want to try to figure it out themselves. When you ask for help, and especially someone who's in the trades, who's 20, 25 years in, like, why try to reinvent the wheel? That person is already successful, has already been there, has already done that. If you can extract, like you said, information out of that individual and a couple others, you can cut off or shave off X amount of years versus trying to figure it out yourself. And I say this quite often, is that I didn't have mentors growing up, and I was always told from my father is go figure it out yourself, which was bad advice because I was trying to figure it out myself and it was going down the wrong direction until I got around mentors and people that helped me elevate in things that I want to do in my business and other things. It is about finding the right person. Also giving back, like you're giving back, right? You're paying it forward, which is a great thing because you were given those tools and now you want to give it back. I do want to switch gears just for a quick second about apprenticeships. Some pushback online, and I get this quite often, is that a lot of kids want to break in to the trades. Maybe they've just come out of trade school. Maybe they've taken some online courses. But the thing is, they're not getting callbacks for the apprenticeships. Like, I always hear the same thing. Nobody's hiring. I'm trying my best and I can't find a job. I want to give up. What would you say to those individuals when they want to get an apprenticeship? Look, what are some qualities? What are some things that they can do?
Become humble, lower your expectations, try to get your foot in the door anywhere. One of the ways that I got in and that my father used to get people in, because my father used to have a kind of a program where he'd get people in as like a shop hand or a driver. And they'd do that for a year before he would put his name behind them to get into the apprenticeship program. Right. And that was a union apprenticeship program. If you can do that, and even if you can't afford trade school, like if you have to pay for trade school, first of all, a lot of states actually, it's free. They subsidize it. And the employer, if you have one that sponsors you, they'll pay for it. But I would say, number one, play a numbers game. Use Google, first of all, to find any and all companies. If you're ever driving by one or you see the guy's vans or something like that on the street, take a picture of it, take the number down. I had 15 years experience when I moved to Florida, and I had to reach out to 30 companies to get 5 interviews, 3 job offers, right? So if you have no experience, just extrapolate that number for yourself, right? Like, don't just try 3 times and then close the door. So that's the first thing. The second thing would be to lower the expectations and try to get in anywhere as a helper, right? Union, non-union, whatever it is, call them and see if you can get in as a hand. And that may mean that you're not going to get paid a lot of money, but you got to think that, again, you're getting paid to get an education and you're paying for an opportunity to make good money later. And oftentimes that can lead into a sponsorship where they will assist you and kind of push you and promote you into an apprenticeship program, whether it's union or non-union. And then the third thing is I would keep a lot of trades in mind. Everyone knows what a plumber is. Everyone knows what an electrician is. Everyone knows what an HVAC tech is. Everyone knows what a carpenter is. That's 4 trades. There's, on the average, like large project, there's 30, 40 trades. One way to get a good mentor, or one definition of getting a good mentor, is somebody that knows what those other companies are. You could think about tile. You could think about bathroom accessories, which would be what? Partitions and ADA grab bars and those things. It could be wall covering. It could be a furniture vendor, somebody that like builds furniture all day. It could be a painter, a taper. There's fire sprinkler companies, which nobody talks about, and that's actually usually the highest paying trade in every market. There are different kinds of carpentry companies. Some do drop ceilings, some do drywall, some do cabinetry, some do just doors. 20 different kinds of electricians, and it just keeps growing with, the evolution of technology. There's not just power, there's high voltage, there's fire alarm, there's low voltage, There's, cable, all these things that you don't even know are there. So trying to educate yourself on those things and what those trades actually are and what opportunities they are. Maybe that's not your career from now for the next 40 years, but again, it's a foot in the door. And usually once you get one foot in the door, the possibilities are endless from there. It's just like breaking the ice. And behind that, you may even find that you like the trade. You may find that there's a need in your area, which allows you to start a business. You may find, again, an opportunity to climb up into management of that company or construction management, project manager, whatever it is. Name some other ones: concrete, excavation. There's just so many different trades out there than those four ones that everybody talks about.
That's great advice because, if you're only reaching out to 2 or 3 companies and you're going to give up, like you said, with all the years experience that you had to reach out to multiple companies. And it's the same thing. If you have no experience, you need to put yourself out there, right? If you want to be a little bit assertive, you can go down to that company, can knock on the door, right? You can speak to somebody. You can see one of their trucks. You can go over to one of the workers. You can do things. You can do something video-wise, showing work that you're doing and send it to the company. Like there's a lot of different things that you can do to sort of stand out. But don't be the person that's going to be like, I tried once, they never called me back, and that's it, I give up. And that's not the mentality of success. That is, dust yourself off, keep trying. Eventually, you will get your break. Whether, like you said, if you take sort of like a lower end job, knowing that you can show the owner or show the executives that you're a hard worker, you'll eventually work your way up quicker and might get into an even better role that you never even anticipated. So it's all about do your thing, put the hard work in, but you might have to contact a lot of different companies in order to get to where you want to get to.
To be clear, we're not talking about job postings. Call the company. I don't care if they have a posting or not. Everybody needs somebody. Go walk into their office, call them, look online, find out who their either HR director is, that info@contractor.com, email that, email the president if they have their email listed, whatever you got to do. I don't care if they have a job posting or not. Show them that you care and that you're interested, and all you're looking for is an opportunity. You kind of touched on one thing. Like if there's one thing looking back at my life, again, started out digging holes, scrubbing toilets on job sites, like unloading trucks of sheet metal. Now I'm a director, and if I told you what I was making, I'm making like top 5% in my age bracket, and it's even higher than that. Every opportunity that I thought I needed and that I wanted, and that, man, this is going to be the key for me getting to that executive level or getting to, whatever level I wanted to get to in my career. Every time a door got shut in my face, a better opportunity that I didn't know was available popped up, and it was the right one. The universe is funny in the way that it works that way. So when a door gets shut in your face, that's okay. This industry is so wide and vast and deep. The opportunities truly are endless. And when that door gets shut, it's just pushing you towards something that's probably better suited for you.
It's all about a mindset change. It's all about picking yourself back up. Like you said, you might find an opportunity. That door was shut, but another opportunity might come, in the future that is much better than the previous opportunity you were trying to go for. So that's really a good thing. It's just, having a positive mindset and also getting around good people who are growth oriented, that have mentors, just, like even said, having some sort of mastermind and talking with other individuals really kind of helps you throughout your journey.
Now, the tools of the trade.
This has been an amazing conversation, but in every episode, we always ask our guests a tools of the trade. What's one piece of advice or a mindset tool that every new construction worker should carry with them day one on the job site?
This industry suffers from the scars of the industry. When you come into this industry, you'll see a lot of grumpy older people. Those are people that have been burned. They have scars. They act a certain way, and they have a certain perception on what's right and wrong. And it's really easy to pick up bad habits and bad perspectives from other people, especially when you know nothing, because it's like your parents when you're growing up. You assume that they're God, right? Like they know everything. And it's the same thing when you come into this industry. So that can do one of three things. Number one, I always use the coffee bean analogy if you're familiar with it. This comes from a book called The Change Agent by Damon West. He was a meth addict, Division I football player, got 65 years in jail, got out. And when he was in jail, somebody told him the coffee bean message, which was, When you're in a high pressure, high temperature environment, it can do three things to you. You can be like a carrot and you get thrown in and you turn into mush. You can be like an egg. You get hard boiled with that tough exterior. You don't let anybody in. Or you can be a coffee bean, which changes that boiling water into coffee, right? So don't let other people's scars make you mush, make you hard. Have your own perspective. Always assume people around you know something you don't, but ask questions and try to challenge that in your mind. Do so respectfully. Ultimately, to make the industry or the team around you act the way that you would want to be treated, as your own leader. So that's what I would say. Try to be a coffee bean. Assume people know something that you don't. Try to educate yourself on what that is and be a free thinker. Make decisions and lead the way that you would want to be led.
I like that. It is about having your perspective. It's good to get other people's perspectives, but there's always going to be naysayers out there, the people that, like you said, were burned and didn't have a good experience. Don't let that keep you down. Definitely keep an open mind. Obviously, you can filter that through how you feel about things in the industry. But the thing is really getting around the right people and getting around the people who really want to succeed. Because when you're around 3 or 4 people who want to get to a certain level, it really there's something that happens. You see they want to grow, you want to grow, and then it kind of lifts the whole group. You don't want to be around the naysayers, but definitely keep an open mind. There's definitely a lot of opportunities in the trades. What you put in is what you get out in the trades. Ike, if people want to find out more information about you, social, or your website, where do they go find you?
Yeah, so Instagram, TikTok, YouTube at the construction mentor _ in between those words. And you can go check out, I have all my podcasts and everything listed on constructionmentor.org. You can catch it on Spotify. My podcast, I bring on people that have been through some stuff. A lot of people that have gone from homelessness, addiction, whatever, to making 7 figures in the trades, multi-million in the trades. They have a lot of stories in there that reflect everything that we just talked about here. Walking into offices and asking for opportunities, or trying to sell themselves to somebody, a contractor that knows how to do concrete when they really didn't know, but now they're doing 7 figures a year because they figured it out as they went. And lastly, for anybody who's interested in a career in construction management, or maybe you're already in the trades and you want to elevate to that next level out of the field, or maybe start your own company, you can go check out the link in my bio on any of those platforms. And there's a intro course for what construction management is, what you can learn. Not only, contracts and invoicing and construction administration and RFIs and submittals and trade knowledge about 14 different trades and how to coordinate those, but a lot of the soft skills that we talked about. The first third of the course is about like how to manage up to older people, how to tell when people are lying to you and you have no experience, how to be that coffee bean, and how to create that perception for people that you're somebody not only that people want to work with, but that wants to be mentored. So you can go check out that link, any one of those platforms, again, at the construction mentor _ in between those words, links in the bio. So if you need anything from me too, you can always, email me or DM me on any of those platforms. I try to do my best to get to everybody.
Yeah, definitely check out Ike's links. Super valuable having you on the show today. Thank you for all the advice that you've given, and keep doing what you're doing.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you for having me.
And thank you to our listeners. If you want more valuable insights and trades-related information, head over to andrewbrown.net and join our Trades Movement newsletter, where we advocate for the trades. We share inspirational stories like Ike. We provide resources, and you join a passionate trades community. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss another episode. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to The Lost Art of the Skilled Trades. Visit us at andrewbrown.net for more resources and tips. Join us next time for real stories and meaningful initiatives as we celebrate our men and women in the skilled trades and shape the future together.